Welcome to Convergence.fm. I'm your host, Ashok Shivanand. On the show, we explore how purpose-driven leaders align their culture, operations, and experimentation to de-risk the decisions that really matter and lead AI-enabled businesses with clarity. Convergence.fm. Transform from the inside out. Subscribe to the podcast to get future episodes as soon as they're published. If you find this helpful, give the podcast a 5-star rating on your podcast app or hit that like button on YouTube. Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Convergence.fm. Today we're going to be talking about a business that got a ton of value, and we're talking millions of dollars at this point, of savings as well as new sales from using artificial intelligence. And it's a deep dive as a result of a lot of feedback we got from last week's episode with Ryan Collins, who's the managing director of a garbage collection company out of California. Now, as you can imagine, this is not a traditionally software company. They had no in-house software talent, as you may or may not have heard on the episode. And they're able to unlock a ton of value while doing it safely, avoiding kind of any security or privacy concerns. They're doing it cheaply when they're not blowing their budget, and they're generating high amounts of ROI, and they're able to do it fast. And I think one of the best things about the story that I heard is that they were able to unlock and engage a blue-collar workforce, folks who typically wouldn't be thought about adopters of AI. And now you've got folks who are like very excited about solving new problems. And I think transitioning this workforce into very much of a problem-solving mindset is maybe the biggest unlock that Ryan and his team has gotten based on what I heard in the episode. So if you haven't heard the episode, go check it out. We're going to talk about some of the points that have come up based on calls that I've gotten or emails that we've gotten with questions as a result. The first thing I think is that this is an opportunity that needs to be seized by leadership, by the board. Whatever happens, don't think that your IT leader installing Copilot on your Windows instance is by any means something that you can call an AI transformation. It's something that maybe is going to be needed, and it's a good thing your IT team's working on it. But really, at this point, you need to start working as a leadership team, as the CEO, as the founder, as a managing director like Ryan is, and start to find problems and ways that AI can really drive differences to your business, change the way that you can be more audacious, whether it's about your purpose, whether it's about your profitability, whether it's about your operations, and don't wait for it to be delegated. One thing that I want to talk about here is around building momentum amongst the folks on your team. The second thing is how we do it quickly, safely, cheaply. And the third thing is that you don't need in-house experts at first. You don't need to wait for those hires. You can do this yourself for now. And then, like we heard in the episode, once you're getting enough validation and ROI, at that point, you can really justify, like a business person, when you need to bring on the in-house talent. So the first thing around building momentum, this is a two-way problem. What I've heard from a lot of folks, other than like, hey, you know what? Our AI stuff, our IT's handling it. They're installing Copilot. We should be good. Which I'm going to say just for the second time for certainty, that don't call that a transformation. It's not. Whatever happens, get off the bench and start solving problems yourself. Secondly, though, I think in order to build momentum and have a team carry out, I think one of the things that we've heard as a question or something that was slowing people down is that they were trying to hire in-house IT talent or bring in an AI expert or bring in a consultant and spending a lot of time hiring the right consultant, but not knowing enough about where and how to hire that right person. Or how much even in terms of what they can afford. So I think the first place to get started is figuring out why you should bother, right? Because some of the folks that we talk to we're very skeptical about AI themselves. And all of this thing was more of a should and some kind of an obligation, as opposed to this wonderful, delightful, exciting opportunity that might make a huge difference to your own lives, the lives of your employees, the lives of your customers and their experience with you, as well as the overall value of your business. So if you don't see the dots connected yet, maybe it's better that you sit on the bench and do things as is and wait for folks in your network, wait for folks in your industry to show you how. I don't personally recommend it. I think if you want to get ahead of that, here are some tips on how you build momentum in-house with your team. The first one is start with yourself. This is a leadership job to end that catch-22 that exists, where maybe you don't have confidence in your team to be able to do this. You don't have confidence that your team has this problem-solving mindset, and they're a lot more slow-moving than something that seems as innovative and fast-moving as AI. And on the flip side, frankly, it's a two-way problem, because your team is also probably a little bit more on the apathetic side, where they don't think that it's going to be worth it for them to raise their hand or stick their necks out or try something different, because it's not the kind of place to where that's valued. That's the catch-22, and it's not going to get solved until leadership solves it. Please, just like not waiting for your IT folks to install Copilot and calling that an IT transformation or AI transformation. Don't wait for your staff to solve this catch-22 around who brings around the new AI mindset. This is a leadership responsibility. And the first thing I think you got to do is start with yourself. Find ways on your 3-year horizon of strategy or your top problems that you're trying to solve that have the biggest uncertainty, and see how AI might solve it. Look for industry case studies. Even just go on ChatGPT and ask it for it to be an expert specific to your industry, provide it with context. Ask it to ask you for more context, and then have a conversation with it to arrive at new ideas, maybe industry case studies that deep research and other tools can help you find, to understand how you can work differently as a leader. And then I think building momentum from there in terms of trying to share this workload. I think a big mistake that I've heard is folks are trying to get everyone in their company to adopt AI altogether. And instead, I think there is a similar adoption curve that you may have with your customers around new products that you have with your employees. Don't bother trying to convert everyone at first. Try to find the early adopters on your team, maybe the innovators on your team. Some of these folks tend to be the ones who are very curious. Maybe they ask questions in meetings that maybe even pseudo seem disruptive in certain cases, but this is coming from a deep-rooted curiosity they have. These are folks that sometimes are willing to skirt around process. They don't wait for rules to be given to them before they need permission. The second thing I would say is these folks don't tend to need everything to be perfect and ironed out around the edges. And they're really motivated by the learning and discovery that comes from getting to experiment with new things. And if there's something that they're spending 8 hours of their day or more on, this is the perfect place for them to exercise their curiosity versus having to go find time outside of work to experiment here. These are also folks that usually will be okay with kind of half-baked solutions that they integrate into their workforce or into their workflow rather, as opposed to the folks who need everything that is perfectly ironed out, folks who need permission, maybe even some level of coercion from you about using AI. Don't worry about those folks. Those are non-believers, and you don't have to take this task upon yourself to convert all of these non-believers into believers. You have folks on your workforce that are kind of the innovators, the early adopters, and they have shown these characteristics even before AI in other parts of your work. Enlist their help. Give those folks maybe more complex business-related problems to solve using AI and see what they come up with. Ask them how they may already be using AI. And I think you'd be surprised about how some of these folks are already using AI In terms of sort of general enablement, though, I do think it's valuable to kind of have a budget set aside that everyone gets access to so that they can get the paid versions maybe of ChatGPT or Claude or whatever tool, about maybe having some level of rules and governance or maybe broad training. But again, similar to the Copilot thing with your IT team, don't think that training is going to be the AI transformation. There needs to be a parallel approach that you as the CEO, as the founder, as the managing director are leading, and you've rolled your sleeves up and you're leading it from the front. Fostering an engaged product organization and aligning them with the principles around lean, human-centered design, and agile will more than likely lead to successful business outcomes for your organization. But getting started or getting unblocked can be hard. This podcast is brought to you by the player coaches over at Integral. They help ambitious companies like you build amazing product teams and ship products in artificial intelligence, cloud, web, and mobile. Listeners to the podcast can head on over to integral.io/convergence and get a free product success lab. During this session, the Integral team will facilitate a problem-solving exercise that gives you clarity and confidence to solve a product design or engineering problem. That's integral.io/convergence. Now, back to the show. Now, once you've identified the small set of folks and maybe you've given them more sort of leadership or strategy or AI problems that are contextually specific to your business, create a space for them to share their wins and their losses. This could be maybe if you're a very in-person culture, you could have like a Friday afternoon where you check out a couple of hours earlier and you get together and talk about AI wins and losses. Again, start with a small team and over time have this be a company-wide initiative. If you're more remote, you could create a new channel on your Slack, on your Microsoft Teams, or however you tend to do your chat communication. Create a new channel and have that be your AI wins and losses. Now, like I said, it's important that you need to signal as a leader how important this is. So I highly recommend, number one, you do the vulnerable thing of testing it out and figuring out ways to use it yourself. Number two, on these channels or in these forums, contribute yourself. Now, don't hog all the space, but make sure that you're taking up some level of space too, rather than just delegating it and waiting for others to come up with ideas or others to share their wins and losses. And the third thing, I think, like you may have heard in the episode with Maya Hari a couple of weeks ago, this vulnerability is a really hard thing to create. There's a lot of magic and innovation that happens once you create it. It's very easy to take it all away. All you have to do is be disappointed in someone because something they tried with AI didn't work. All you have to do is point out that something was like a dumb question when someone was just being genuinely curious. I've made the mistake of this myself. And as an aside, I'll say sometimes even nonverbal communication, even with the best of intentions, do show up and do have a big impact on this vulnerability space. So those are a couple of things that I would say from my personal experience in working with other leaders that we can avoid some pitfalls for ourselves and not slow things down for our team. The second thing that I thought was a really profound takeaway from Ryan's episode, and I've talked about with various CEOs and owners around friction points about adopting AI, is sometimes they think like the technology solutions are too expensive. Why? Because you've gone out and looked at your add-on to your CRM or looked at some kind of off-the-shelf solution. And like in Ryan's case for that call center, it was over $100K and they just didn't have that much budget in their case to allocate towards this problem. And a lot of people may just say, you know what, it's too expensive to solve, so we're not going to do it. Others may say, hey, I've heard AI and these companies are going to steal my data and I don't want to put my private data on there, so I'm just going to do nothing. And in Ryan's case, with that call center case study, instead of spending $100K or saying no, instead of having like privacy concerns or saying no, they were able to find more fine-tuned ideas within there where they found a local device, a gaming computer in his case, and then open source models that they run on the local device that gave them ultimately the business outcome. Now, was it as polished as the $100,000 solution? Maybe, maybe not, probably not, because that company is doing it as their day job. Well, was it more specific and arguably a way better solution to them? Yes, absolutely, because they were able to make this critical decision, right? Instead of hiring a PR firm to solve a problem they never had in the first place, they were able to identify key changes they needed to make to their website so that they could create a better customer experience, they could reduce the number of calls coming into their call center, and repurpose their call center folks to more valuable things. So I think if there's a decent amount of resourcefulness and curiosity, there's a lot of options that present in front of you where you can do it for cheap, you can do it fast, and you can do it safely without worrying about a lot of the privacy and security concerns, which I think are legitimate in a lot of the cases. You want to be very intentional about what kind of information you're putting out into the free cloud-based versions like ChatGPT and make sure that you're being careful around that. But that doesn't mean that all AI is going to steal your data. There are ways that you can run it on your network, on your own devices with open source models that you have complete control over who gets to see the data. And in Ryan's case, they had to because they were government contractors and their contracts precluded them from being able to upload data into these cloud-based systems. And another thing I want to mention here is that there's a good chance that you already have a computer here that can do this. I run a MacBook Pro, and the M line of processors and Apple Silicon are pretty good at being able to run sort of lower context language models. So maybe it's not the production system that you're going to have for, in that case, that call center and all of the call volume that they needed to upload. But in the early days, when you need to just prove out an idea, you don't even need to go get another computer. You can take a small subset of your data and see if you can build an AI workflow that's going to be better, maybe faster, more effective than the manual process that you have now, as well as kind of create ideas of things that weren't possible before that you can invent today just by a computer that you might already have at your desk today, right? The third thing that was an amazing takeaway is Ryan didn't hire an expert. AI showed him how to do this, right? All the way back to that kind of IoT solution he talked about where we prevented all of the flooding with the frozen pipes. They were able to use ChatGPT to help them vibe code a solution using like a controller that cost $100 or less and avoid $30,000 a year of problems, plus an additional kind of saved a bunch of headaches for people on his team that were not dedicated to solving this problem, whose day would be ruined every time this showed up. So there's a lot of ways that the AI tools today can help you out with getting started. Literally, I want you to stop this episode and try and use AI to solve one of the problems today. Don't wait, like a lot of the folks that I talk to find the right hire or find the right consultant when you can get started yourself right now. And the thing that you bring to the table that no one else knows is what your vision is, what kind of purpose within you informs that vision, what the biggest risks or constraints you think are, or on the flip side, what the biggest opportunities are, and within those, which carry the biggest uncertainty, whether it's risks or opportunities, and see how AI might help you solve it. Maybe it's going to be a strategy solution. Maybe it's something that's a little bit more technical that needs some vibe coding. But either way, I think there's way more options in front of you. And hopefully this takeaway, as well as that recording with Ryan, has helped a bunch of you get off the bench and into the field to start helping AI help you. As always, if you have more questions, find us. You can get us at our website, convergence.fm. There's a contact page, that you can even record a message if you don't want to type one up. and someone from our team will get back to you and we'll schedule some time to go over this. Or any of the social media DMs that you tend to follow us on is another way that we can find some time to schedule. We will be back on convergence.fm next week, and we're actually going to talk about an AI vibe-coded solution that I built with a company that's in the warehousing space, and they had something that was going to cost them $100,000 maybe once a month that they were thinking they'd have to turn some work down. And this work was going to be way more valuable in the long term, but that initial cost was just very prohibitive. And we built together an AI solution that did some image analysis over just 2.5 days that helped them win business, save over 6 figures a month, and cost them very little to do, both in development time as well as ongoing operational costs. So I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit more about that with y'all, hoping that it will also inspire some ideas of where AI can help you. Until then, I hope you have a lovely week. Start now, start with yourself, and start small. And I think we'd all be surprised about where we can end. We'll see ya. Thank you for joining me on the Convergence Podcast today. Subscribe to the Convergence Podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your content. If you're listening and found this helpful, please give us a 5-star review. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button and tell me what you think about what you heard today.